Hey guys, Borning in here, and I have a new video for you guys about another top 10 list, and it's actually a top 25 list because you'll see in a second. So it's the new year, it's 2020, and we just went through an entire decade of 2010s and weirdness and amazingness, and one of the great things that came in the 2010s decade was a lot of great movies. So I think it'd be fun to do a countdown of not the top 10, but the top 25 movies of the 2010 decade, in my opinion. This is not the right list, this is not a correct list, this is just my opinion, my own list. So if you have your own list, leave it in the comments below. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started with my top 25 movies of the 2010 decade. Starting off the list, we have a high one with Deadpool. Deadpool was by far one of the best comic book movies, not only of the decade, but of all time. It's something that we've all wanted to see, a fully adapted Deadpool movie that's rated R, has a great cast, and has a good story. And it does. And, you know, the story is kind of cliche, you've seen it before, but just besides all that, you have a great cast with, you have Ryan Reynolds, of course, and then you have Firefly chick who plays his wife. You just have a great cast. That's what I'm trying to say. And you have Ed Skrein or Skyrn as the villain. But, you know, other than just the cast, this is what Deadpool is. He's a wise ass, he's a shit talker, he is funny, he breaks the fourth wall, he loves chimichangas. This is what Deadpool is. Granted, we don't hear much about chimichangas in the movie, but this is a great adaptation of the character. The people that made this movie were obvious Deadpool fans, and Ryan Reynolds was too, and that's why we got one of the best comic book movies of all time. Coming in at number 24, we have Logan. Now, if Logan is this low on my list, you know that there's going to be a lot of great movies on this list, because Logan was my favorite movie of 2017, not only because it's a great comic book film, but it's a great drama, it's a great piece of pop culture and art that someone made, James Mangold and Hugh Jackman, and this is Hugh Jackman's last time ever being Wolverine, and we have to show it off with some respect, and respect it does receive and earn, because this is a gritty, dark movie in all the best ways. You know, we think of dark superhero movies or comic book movies, we think of like Joker and the Dark Knight trilogy. Logan is one of those movies, just based on the action of how gritty and rated R and bloody, gory this movie is. It's gory and it's gritty for a reason, and it has a great story, and it's a perfect send-off to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine character. At 23 is The Social Network. This movie was a lot to sit through and take in, but when I first watched it, I remember just being so blown away by David Fincher's direction where he went with this movie, and Aaron Sorkin's screenplay, that I had to give props to this movie. And Jesse Eisenberg, in probably the best role he's ever going to play in his life, is one of the best, most entertaining movies I've seen, and it's not really supposed to be much of an entertaining movie. It's a biography about this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, and his struggles and how he created Facebook and what he went through. But I gotta say, everyone did their part just right, and everyone did an amazing job with this movie, so my hat's off to everyone created or involved with this project. At 22 is Drive. Now, Drive is one of the most divisive films of not only the decade, but of all time probably, because I've run into people who either love this movie or hate this movie. I'm on the side that kind of loves it. There's no in between. You can't really not like it and not hate it either. I think you have to love it or you have to hate it, and there's just something about this movie that you have to analyze and take a step back and be like, what am I watching? And then when you process it and really take in the movie, I think that's when it becomes the most beautiful piece of art you've not ever watched, but one of the most beautiful pieces of art you've watched in your lifetime. And Ryan Gosling's performance is great, even though you really don't see much. And, you know, I don't mean you don't see him at all, but, like, you don't see much of what he can do. And that's saying a lot with a movie that's really good. But if you haven't seen this movie, I recommend you give it a watch and just see what you think. I don't think you'll be in between. You'll either love this movie or hate it. 21 is Looper. What a great, interesting take on the whole time travel-esque feature, and Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt give two stellar performances of likes I've never really seen before. You know, we always look at Bruce Willis as this comedic guy from Moonlighting, and then he's the action star from Die Hard, and, you know, Armageddon. And he's had a couple good, serious roles, but we never really seen how great his acting can really be, and the acting chops the guy has, because he does. And same with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, man. You know, he is an amazing, phenomenal actor. I saw that with Inception and this little movie called 50-50. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but these both are terrific actors, and they play their asses off in this movie, and this is just a great movie, one of Rian Johnson's best, certainly better than that piece of trash called The Last Jedi, but we're not going to talk about that. Rian Johnson has the ability to do great movies, but he proved that with this movie, and I just think if you haven't seen this movie, give it a watch, and you will be blown away just by how stellar and amazing this movie is, and how much it just makes you think about film as a whole. Another comic film at number 20 is X-Men First Class. This was just a nice, fresh prequel take that we needed, I think, for the X-Men movies, because the last one we got before this was X-Men Origins Wolverine. And what a disaster that movie was. And, you know, Matthew Vaughn was able to just restore all faith in the X-Men franchise by giving this movie. We have outstanding performances from James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. They are fantastic in this movie. Even Jennifer Lawrence is great in this movie, which you can't really say that a lot because she's not that great a lot of the times. But just everything about this movie just is... It's action-packed. It's got the emotion with Eric Lyncher, and his character, his deeply flawed, tragic character, is amazing to see and witness. And we see by the end how he becomes Magneto, and just everything falls together perfectly for the X-Men franchise with this one movie. At number 19, we have Skyfall, Daniel Craig's third outing as James Bond, and what a great movie this was. It seems like James Bond with Daniel Craig has kind of got the whole Star Trek thing going on, the original series, where the first movie was good, except it's kind of reversed. So Star Trek, the first movie was bad, and then the second movie was good, third movie was bad, fourth movie was good. This one, it seems to be, the first movie was good, Quantum of Solace was terrible, and then we have Skyfall. We're not here to talk about anything else but Skyfall. Great movie, great action, great villain. Daniel Craig is just an amazing James Bond, as he proved to us with the first Casino Royale movie. It carries over into this movie where we're just going to pretend like Quantum of Solace never happened. Sticking with the action genre, at 18 we have John Wick Chapter 1. Now, I know I've said before that I think John Wick Chapter 3 is probably my favorite of the trilogy, but just thinking about what movie started it all off, I have to go with the OG John Wick Chapter 1 from 2014. What a great action movie this was. It just is the pinnacle of great action movies, you know, of this decade. You know, we haven't seen an action movie like this since the 90s or the 80s. It's classic action cheese, but it kind of loses some of the cheese aspect and just gives you great storytelling and a great action movie. What would you do if someone broke into your house, stole your car, and killed your puppy after your wife had just died? I guarantee you, if you were part of who John Wick was in the past, you would go after those fuckers too, and you would take them out one by one, just like he does in the movie. And number 17 is Nightcrawler. What a great, eerie, creepy, down-to-earth movie this was. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance is by far the best he's ever been in any other movie of all time. He's great in this movie. You know, I have another movie with Jake Gyllenhaal on the list later on, but nothing comes close to his performance as Louis Bloom or Lou Bloom in this movie. He's just a great character, and you know, he gives you the heebie-jeebies, and you're kind of scared of this guy, but by the end he convinces you that you don't have to be scared, and that it's the news. That's what's scary. And just the way this movie pans out, and everything about it as the movie plays through, and you get to see this guy and what he really is, it's just great storytelling, and it got snubbed at the Oscars. I don't know why. At number 16, we have Blade Runner 2049. What a surprise this movie was. I kind of knew going into it that it might be one of the best movies of the year and possibly of the decade, because it's directed by one of the best directors working today, Denis Villeneuve, who did Prisoners, Enemy, Arrival, this movie, and I believe he's doing an upcoming Dune movie this year. So that's going to be fun. This guy knows how to do a movie and tell a story extraordinarily well. Extraordinarily. Yeah, this movie's fantastic. This movie's like watching your favorite porn and just being engulfed in it, you know? The visuals are just so amazing, and just seeing all the like the bright and splash of color that you see everywhere is just really immersive, and it gets you into the story. And then Harrison Ford giving a really great performance, as well as Ryan Gosling and Jared Leto. This movie is just off the wall, and it's great. It feels a little bit different than the original Blade Runner because, you know, there's a lot of things that are similar to it, but it doesn't feel like it's going too overboard with differences. You know, you can still tell it's a Blade Runner movie, but just different spices. And number 15 is a movie that I wanted to put on my 2019 best movies list, but I didn't see it until after I made the list, and that is The Lighthouse. This movie, I want to do an entire video about this movie because this movie is just so far out there. Robert Eggers delivers a great piece of art and beauty with this movie, and two great performances by Robert Pattinson, I think his name is. Robert Pattinson, the guy from Twilight. You know, I always looked at him as the guy from Twilight, and I was going to look at him as Batman because he's going to be Batman, but he's so great in movies. I think it's just the writing that made those Twilight movies so bad and made him a really bad actor. He is a great actor when given the right material, and we gotta talk about Willem Dafoe in this movie and his lobster. Are you fond of me, lobster? Oh my god, this movie was just great, and it's eerie. You don't know what to expect, and you just are watching these two characters lose their sanity together in the midst of this lighthouse that they don't know how long they've been there, and they're middle of a storm all the time, and there's like some deep, weird things about this movie, and that ending is something to be talked about for decades and ages to come. My god, this would have been in my top 3 if I had seen it before I made my list. I'm sorry, but it comes at number 15. A little bit on the brighter side of things, let's go into number 14 with Coco. This movie is, oh my god, this movie is a tearjerker at its finest. Pixar at its highest point, I believe this movie is. It is one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time. I do believe it's probably number 2. Because there's something else that you're going to see. And Coco is just an amazing movie. And it's weird because I haven't found anyone out there that actually thinks of this as one of the best Pixar movies, but I definitely do. It's a tearjerker. The story behind it is just so impeccable and just something you never really think of. This musician, and he idolizes this big musician, and he just wants to be like him, and then learns about the dead and celebrating Day of the Dead, and it's just amazing. And the movie has great visuals and color schemes, and just is a beautiful movie when you strike it down to its core, and just everything about it just oozes beauty and art. Coming in at number 13 is Toy Story 3. Now, if you know me and you know my list of the best movies of 2019, you know I did not put Toy Story 4 on my list, although I would consider it maybe an honorable mention. Toy Story 4 I liked. I liked the movie, but I felt like it was just seeing something that we didn't really need to see. Toy Story 3 is the best ending to the Toy Story series that there ever could possibly be. You know, Andy's going off to college, and he leaves the toys with a better person that could take care of him more than a college kid can. We see everything about this movie come together, and talk about Pixar tugging at the heartstrings with this movie. Man, this is just a great send-off to these characters that we've come to know since 1995, and it would have been the perfect ending to the trilogy, but I understand why they wanted to make Toy Story 4 and just talk about Bo Peep and all that, but I really think the movie should have ended after 3, and it would have been perfect. The perfect ending to Toy Story. At number 12 is Avengers Infinity War. This movie was the culmination of a lot, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, why isn't Avengers Endgame on the list? And I'm going to tell you this right now, in case you're hoping that it's somewhere else in my next 11 spots, it's not. Because I liked Avengers Endgame. It was the perfect ending to the Avengers and the Infinity Saga. It was the perfect ending. But Avengers Infinity War I just felt to be a better movie in my opinion. Avengers Endgame was the 6th best movie of 2019 in my opinion, while Infinity War was my number 1 movie of 2018. there's just a lot more to digest and enjoy and see when it comes to Avengers Infinity War. Avengers Endgame was good. It's really good. It's amazing. But nothing holds a candle to Infinity War. You know, I just loved all the visuals and the action. I'm going to say visuals a lot, but everything about the Avengers Infinity War movie was just pure action and bliss that we needed to see in a Marvel movie leading up to an event at this scale and this size. And plus, Thanos is just a badass villain, and we got to see him for the first time in action, which was really cool. At number 11 is Avengers, the first one from 2012. I will say this always. Avengers Endgame is a great movie, but here's the thing. I still think, after everything I've praised about Infinity War and Endgame and any other Marvel movie that's great, I still think nothing beats the first time you sat in the theater in 2012 and watched the culmination of Iron Man, Hulk, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Thor, Captain America, Nick Fury, and all these characters come together on the big screen for the first time. Nothing will ever beat that experience, and that just goes to show you that that's the strongest point, in my opinion, in the MCU so far, is the characters meeting for the first time to stop a common threat that they all share and save the day for the greater good. It's just what a lot of the MCU has built on so far, and it's been the groundwork for a lot of great MCU movies to come, and it's just what we needed to see at the right time. And I think we got all the setup we needed with all the characters, and we just got this big 2-hour, 20-minute action movie, and it was amazing, and it was everything us fans wanted to see that we've been wanting to see ever since Iron Man came out in 2008. Kicking off our top 10, sticking with the superhero genre, we're going to go with Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse. This was almost my number one of the year. This was just wow. The animation was beautiful and unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was just phenomenal to see. And the characters, Miles Morales, done perfectly from the comics, is just this Spider-Man enthusiast, someone who loves this character, and just everything about this movie just screamed comic book Spider-Man. I'm a huge fan of Spider-Man. I've grown up with this character ever since I was a little kid watching the 90s series on Jetix, if you remember that crap. Oh man, this was just a great movie and really, really brought me back to my childhood, back to my roots of being a long-time Spider-Man fan. It was just everything I wanted to see and more, and the story and the villains and the Kingpin and the everything about this movie was just phenomenal. At number 9, you want to talk about visuals. Let's talk about Mad Max Fury Road. Possibly one of the greatest action scenery movies of the entire decade, and possibly of a lot of other decades in recent years. Certainly probably my favorite Mad Max movie, and that's not saying much because I don't really like the Mad Max movies, except this one was really good. Tom Hardy's great in the role. Furiosa steals the show. Visuals are just it's like watching visual porn. I mean, what? That is porn. Porn is visual. You watch it, you look at it, it's visual. It's like watching effect porn. That still doesn't make... You know what the fuck I'm saying. It's a great movie. It's great action. It's great, like, design. The color scheme of the movie. Everything about it just bleeds creativity. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those movies that you really have to see it to really look and see the beauty in it. Number 8 is a movie that I loved and cannot stop rewatching. If you put it on, or if it's on TV, or if it's on Netflix, I will watch it any time it's on, and I will never get tired of it. That is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. What a great movie this is. Edgar Wright does everything right, wink wink, with this movie, because you know, Michael Cera is just a beauty. He is a godsend, and combine him with fucking, what's her name from Cloverfield Lane, 10 Cloverfield Lane, trying to remember her name. You know, she's great. She was like my first, like, crush when I was a youngin', you know, watching movies for the first time and really getting into them and all that pop culture and stuff. She was my first crush. I was like, oh man, she's super cute, man. And this is just a really good movie. It's styled to look like a comic book video game adventure movie made by Edgar Wright. So there's a lot of comedy, great characters with Scott, his roommate, who's probably my favorite character in the movie. The villains are all great. You've got everything. You've got an entire recipe of how to make a great movie. And Edgar Wright succeeded on every level imaginable. Great movie. And number 7 is Prisoners. This was the other Jake Gyllenhaal movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal really gives a stellar performance here, but I think we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, which was Hugh Jackman. Before this, we'd only seen him really as, I think Les Miserables came out before this, so we've only seen him as the character in Les Miserables, and his singing voice, and Wolverine. We saw him a couple other things, but mainly that's it. This really showcases Hugh Jackman's ability to act. Everything about his acting in this movie just portrays that he has lost his children and that he wants them back, and they've been taken from him, and he will do anything and he will stop at nothing to get his kids back. And that really represents the beauty about this movie. That, on top of that, we have Jake Gyllenhaal, who gives a stellar performance as this police detective, Loki, who just wants to help this guy get his kids back. And Terrence Howard does a great job, and Viola Davis. Paul Dano is so creepy and eerie in this movie. This movie just has that tone, a really somber and depressing tone, but by the end of it, you want everything to go right for this family, and you want them to get the kids back, and you're not disappointed by the end of the movie. I know I wasn't. This is just a great movie. Great filmmaking. Filmmaking at its finest. This movie is fantastic. At number 6 is probably the movie with the greatest story and greatest heart-hitting, gut-wrenching storytelling that I've ever seen before, certainly on this entire list, is 12 Years a Slave. This movie is fantastic, and I remember wanting to see this because something about it, I think it was the Oscar buzz got me excited, and the all-star cast. Chiwetel Ejiofor is fantastic in this movie, and he never ceases to amaze me. He's fantastic in everything he's in, even the bad movies he's always great in, and just everything about this movie. And you see the struggle of this man who's free. He's a free man, but he's taken and he's sold into slavery. It's just a really gut-punching and heart-wrenching story, and how he gets to meet a bunch of friends on the plantation. It's just a really great story, and by the end of it, there's not a dry eye in the house. And I remember loving this movie and just wanting to... I felt so bad for this character and just wanted him to be free. And, no spoilers here, but just by the end of it, you're left satisfied. And I think that's really where this movie shines, is just everything you want to happen happens. And it's really just a beautiful piece of art. And number 5 is a unique take on the superhero, superpower genre, and that's Chronicle. I remember really being confused about this movie when I first saw it, but after a few watches, I really learned to appreciate the beauty of it and just love the movie. Dane DeHaan is perhaps at his all-time best in this movie. You could say he was really good in A Cure for Wellness, or whatever that movie was called, but this is where he really shines. This, and then you have Michael B. Jordan. Wow. Just, this movie is fantastic, and it takes so many twists and turns and directions you don't expect. You want it to go left, or you expect it to go left, it goes right instead, or straight forward. And it just leaves you on the edge of your seat, I think. And just, it's a really unique take on superheroes, and what would we do as humans if we were given power. And I urge you to see this movie if you haven't already. It's just great storytelling and great acting, and I'm going to say that about literally every movie on the list because it's just my favorite movies of the decade. But wow, Chronicle is just a hard-hitting movie. Number 4, another Edgar Wright entry, we have Baby Driver. This is just fun, cheese, action, adventure, drama, greatness. Only weak part is the kitty raper. Yeah, fuck you, Kevin Spacey. Go to hell. But yeah, let's talk about the actual movie here and get away from certain topics. Epstein didn't kill himself. That's a known fact. But yeah, Baby Driver is great. It's a great movie. Just everyone in it, Ansel Elgort, John Hamm, Jamie Foxx, great people, except for the kitty raper. Fuck him. But beside that, we got to look at everything great about this movie, and that is the stylistic choice of directing is great. You know, the comedy really blends well. The story, just this getaway driver, part of heists. It's one of the best heist movies I think I've ever seen. It's just really got something for everybody, I think. And I think everyone who watches this movie will enjoy something about it. The soundtrack's amazing. Just the things that Edgar Wright puts in there that you don't expect. Like the opening scene where he's dancing to the Harlem Shuffle. You know, there's a lot of things that he does where he's just like, he makes cool things happen, like Easter eggs happen within the shots. It's just a really great movie, and I just remember being so blown away by it when I first saw it. It was just amazing, and something you really got to analyze and think about. Number 3 is the mind-bending and skin-crawling Inception. Christopher Nolan always surprises me, because no matter if his movie is great or underwhelming or disappointing, he always manages to impress you in some way or another. This movie not only has great storytelling, great acting, great directing, great soundtrack from Hans Zimmer, but just the visual effects and the way that certain shots are shot, certain scenes are shot and filmed, just messes with your mind and makes you rethink and bend reality. How the way they bend reality and dreams and everything about this movie is just, oh my god, it's just spoon feeding you greatness and giving it to you on a silver platter. Christopher Nolan worked wonders with this. This is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Dark Knight is number 2. This is number 1. Just an amazing movie, and I can't wait to see what he does next. I know he's doing a Tenet movie, I think is what it's called, later this year. I can't wait to see it. Every movie of his, a couple of them have disappointed me, but something about him just impresses me, and I don't know what it is, but I think it's just his style of directing, and then the visual effects, and everything about it is just so mind-boggling. This movie in particular is just really high up there. It takes the cake. My number 2 is a pick that you might think would be my number 1, and that is Joker. Joker, what can I say about Joker that hasn't already been said? You know, it's great storytelling, acting, superb. Everything I've already said about any other movie on the list is what Joker is times like a million. The set pieces, the fact that it's what do they call that? Something when it's a timepiece, whatever that is called. It takes place in the 80s, and just seeing all the ruggedness and the dirty, grimy streets of Gotham City, and you see this man beaten down by society, and just thinking, wow, this happens in real life. This movie is just fantastic on every level. I've said what I need to say. I'm sure everyone's curious, what is my favorite movie of the decade from 2010 to 2019? Well, drum roll, because it's very fitting. I'm sure you guys guessed it by the drum roll. My number 1 movie of the decade is actually going to be Whiplash. Wow, what a movie this is. What a film. I am a music nerd. I took choir. I didn't like choir especially that much. Just a really toxic environment, that's why. But I'm a huge music person. Music gets me through everything, and just seeing a movie so well crafted about music, about a jazz drummer wanting to be the best, but the only thing in his way is his asshole teacher, who, by the way, is played perfectly by J.K. Simmons in one of his best roles of all time. You could say J. Jonah Jameson, but really, this is where J.K. Simmons shines, and he really shines hella. He is the top of this movie. You cannot have this movie if you do not have J.K. Simmons, because no one else could play that character as well as he did. Not only that, Miles Teller gives a really great performance, the kind of which I haven't seen him do at all. I remember when this came out, when I saw it, it actually got me excited for his Fantastic Four film, because I was excited to see how great of an actor he was. And granted, the movie was bad, and he wasn't great in it, but that was not his fault. That was lousy writing and directing. So I don't blame him for Fantastic Four's drop off, but we're not here to talk about negative. We're here to talk about Whiplash. Just every scene is so tense to the point where you're just biting your nails and you're on the edge of your seat. And I think his name Damien Chazelle, who made this movie, A+, good job. I applaud you, man. You did everything perfectly that you could have in this movie. From A to Z, you got there, and you made several points along the way. Just a great, great film. Whiplash is my #1 movie of the decade because of just the stellar performances, the amazing nail-biting sequences. Every scene has you on the edge of your seat, and it's just amazing. No other film can really do that. So thank you, Whiplash, for being my favorite movie of the 2010 decade. All right. And that's going to wrap up my list of the top 25 movies of the 2010 decade. I know I'm a little bit late, but, you know, it's never too late. Rather be too late than too early? No, that's not the same as. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you guys have to think or say about your favorite movies of the decade. So whatever they are, go ahead and leave those in the comment section below if you want to. Anyway, let's have a great 2020. Let's not go to war with fucking Iran, please. Let's just have a great year. New decade ahead of us. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.